So Allie she's open about it, so I'm not revealing. So she doesn't like huge venues. You know, she could do like a bunch of arenas. When she did San Francisco,
Yeah.
it's her hometown. She, you know, they were like, "Hey, do the Oracle Arena." She was like, "No." She did, you know, the Masonic. It's an awesome theater. She did 19 there.
19?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The audience is not. It's fun. Like, wow, look, I'm in an arena, but the audience is like, I can't even see him. You're walking to see a comedian. You shouldn't have to walk up a big cement ramp and like sit in a bleacher seat holding a cup with a basketball player on it, like Duncan. Like, that's a show.
So during the last couple of years, we have been seeing the massive increase in the amount of comics that are now doing arenas, and a lot of them are actually selling out. And although, yes, it has been mainly fueled by social media and or their podcasts, I think they have now redefined what it means to be one of the best stand-up comics at the moment. Because keep in mind that back then, being able to sell out an arena as a comic meant that you were at the top of the comedy game.
But in reality,
Yeah.
right now is the new good day.
I know.
Because it got to a point where, like, really?
Yeah.
You know, there's easily 10 comics that are doing arenas right now, whereas back then, you couldn't even dream of an arena. There was maybe, Dice Clay did it
Yeah,
for
Dice.
HBO special.
Yeah.
And that was all you heard.
Yeah. And then years later, Dane did it, I
Dane
guess.
Cook,
Dane did it.
And that
Yeah.
was a big deal. And then all of a sudden, boop, boop, boop. Yeah.
Now, I do want to make a clear distinction between comics like Kevin Hart, Bill Burr, Louis C.K., and Fluffy, and the comedians that we will be covering in this video that you can call comics that came from the Rogan sphere or that blew up thanks to podcasting and social media. Now, what's funny is that back then, a lot of comics would make fun of the fact that everybody had a podcast. Then it was everybody has a special. I'm guessing now it's probably going to be everybody's doing arena tours now. So I thought it would be interesting to take a deeper look and actually see how these arena comics are actually exposing themselves and showing that they're not really there for the comedy and instead just want the money, fame, and recognition, because there's other people, other comedians that we can compare them to. For example, Theo Von, Bobby Lee, Shane Gillis, who are completely killing it right now. They're making a ton of money. Theo Von is actually doing arenas, but they're handling it way differently. And we actually covered this on a previous video, and after rewatching Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura essentially brag about who does bigger venues or flies in better airplanes, instead of bragging about who has the best jokes or has the best bits, it made me want to look a little bit deeper into this. And then I realized that there was somebody that has been doing something very similar as Tom and Bert Kreischer recently.
Dude, this game's changed.
Yeah,
It's unrecognizable. I mean, we're sitting back there talking about lighting packages for arenas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this game is.
Yeah.
I walk in here and I look at this and I go. I said it when I walked in. I said this.
Yeah.
Is what every comic will have one day. One day.
Yeah.
Everyone will have this, and this will be your business.
Yo, you hit me. You're like, yo, I don't think you flexing this
You
enough.
ain't stunting enough, man. You know what I'm saying? Where's the video to post on
I
the
said,
gram?
we're editing it, bro. Give us a second. The flex is coming Monday.
Only just because it's not even about the flexing. I don't think there's a better flex than having people.
Yo.
You know what I'm saying? It ain't like you showing a wad of money. You ain't showing no jewelry. It's the people. Like you got, for anybody who ever fronted on you, who said, oh, what you doing not gonna work, or you're not funny, whatever. When you got 26,000 people coming to see you once, bro, that's what a Raptors play, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we did it. Yeah, we did it twice, man. We did it Friday and Saturday.
Damn.
It was crazy.
Damn.
It's crazy.
That's not been, hasn't been the biggest venue so far, though, right?
No, but it's just like in perspective. Yeah, this is the biggest venue I've ever done.
Yeah.
But like to put things in perspective, it's like Drake is there this Friday, Saturday, and he has 2 shows.
Damn.
Now, obviously, I don't blame any of them for trying to make money and sharing their accomplishments. Of course not. But I think it's only fair that we call out how comedians like Tom, Bird, and Andrew Schultz are now starting to drift away into the arena lifestyle. And instead of showing off their accomplishments, it seems like they're just looking for confirmation bias and for people to tell them how great they are. Because when you go from theaters to doing arenas, that's a massive change. It's a whole different lifestyle. And look, some comics, yes, they get way too big to be on theaters, no pun intended. But when it comes to comics like Andrew Schultz, Tom, and Bert, it just seems like they're trying to sacrifice everything that they have built for just to say that they're doing arenas when there's really no need to do that yet. For example, even if right now you are the biggest comedian around, you still don't have to do the massive venues if you don't want to. It's a choice.
Yeah.
Dude, she exploded, man.
Exploded. I
Now
mean,
she's
not,
up for like multiple Emmys for her new show.
I mean,
It's
her,
insane.
yeah. And her people don't know that, like, so Allie she's open about it, so I'm not revealing. She doesn't like huge venues.
Really?
No. So, like, she could do like a bunch of arenas.
Mm-hmm.
When she did San Francisco,
Yeah.
which is her hometown, she, they were like, hey, do the Oracle Arena. She was like, no. She did, the Masonic. It's an awesome theater. She did 19 there.
19?
Yeah. Or like in LA.
Too many.
I know. She's like, no, she just parks. She's just like, I'll just take the family and hang out there for 3 weeks.
Jesus. Well, that's I guess if you're just using it as a
But she likes-
residency,
yeah,
you
she's
can
exactly.
space it out. Did
But
she
she
do
also
19
likes-
in a row?
I mean, like over the
God
course of
damn.
like probably a few days off. Wiltern in LA, great venue. 14, 15, yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, you're like, just do the Staples. And she's like, no, because she doesn't like the show, which I get. Like, she's like, she's done big ones. She's like, she doesn't even like 5,000 seaters. She's like,
It's like 300 is the magic number for a comedy club. For it to be intimate but still big, 300 is the magic number. So anywhere you can get between like 250 and 300 is like the sweet zone.
It's like Comedy Works.
Yeah, it's the sweet zone. You get to those big stand up live in Phoenix. That's huge.
It's impersonal.
It's so big. It's like a small theater. It's
funny
fun
to
for
watch.
the people in the front, but it's like a small theater.
Once again, Ali Wong is one of the biggest comics out at the moment, and the fact that comedians like her and Louis C.K. both agree that doing arenas might not be the best experience for the consumer, or simply they don't like it, says a lot. Because yes, when it comes to stand-up comedy shows, bigger isn't better. You could argue that with music, even if you have one of the farthest seats up at a stadium, you can still listen to the music. And a lot of the times, a lot of places that artists will show up at, people are just happy that they're there, and so they'll enjoy the show. But with stand-up comedy, the entire show, the entire value is the experience of listening to the show, making sure they see your facial expressions, and understanding what's going on. So obviously when you have arenas like this one that Andrew Schultz was at, you have people all the way at the top. I'm pretty sure these are people all the way up here that, I mean, for sure that they're not having a great time.
I remember you telling me a lot of like really kind of sage things.
I used to do arenas and stuff. All that.
You told
stuff.
me that.
Yeah.
You go, you're doing arenas. I said, yeah. And you go, it's for you.
Yeah, exactly. The audience is not. It's not. It's fun. Like, wow, look, I'm in an arena, but the audience is like, I can't even see him. You're walking to see a comedian. You shouldn't have to walk up a big cement ramp and like sit in a bleacher seat holding a cup with a basketball player on it, like Duncan, like. And you're watching him really on like a TV above your head, and he's this big, and there's people talking. That's a shitty show.
Tampa, I'm going to be at the Amalie Arena February 17th.
Yeah.
You just rocked Toronto T-Dot to 6.
Man, that was unbelievable, bro.
How was it? How many people?
It was 26,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
As a stand-up comic,
That was
no
cool as
song,
hell.
no bars, just jokes.
The jokes, man.
26,000 people.
It was unbelievable, man. So much.
How is that for you being a comic, man? Do you still have the same level of intimacy with a 20 or the seat?
That was always my concern.
Yeah.
That was always my concern going into it. I was like, can I still hold the attention? Can I still like create tension and then have that release? And we did a bunch of things to make sure that could happen. We spent a lot of money doing those things too.
Like screens?
The screens. That creates the intimacy for those people that are all the way upstairs in the back. We have them like angled at a certain way so that like everybody in the room can see you and all the energy is directing towards you. Like there's just a lot of things that we kind of did because that's the most important thing. Because you can do smaller venues, just do more shows.
Yeah.
And if the show suffered, then I would just rather do that because I want people to come out and have the best show. But the energy was great. Toronto, thank you so much.
And look, Louis C.K. does have a good point there because I've been to a lot of theaters, and unless you're willing to spend a lot of money to see the comic up close, there's a very good chance that you'll probably just see him from a big screen, depending on how big the theater is, or from a weird angle, depending on where you're sitting. And it's funny that Andrew Schultz's solution to making the arena more intimate was to spend money on the big screens. Like if That's not what already happens all the time. I mean, there's no way around it. There's no way to make an arena feel intimate, in my opinion. And I think at that point, might as well just own it. Just own it and say that, yes, you are doing arenas because you want to cash in while you can at the moment, and that is probably not going to go on forever. I mean, everybody does it. Now, to be fair, you could argue that everything that Andrew Schultz has been doing is pretty consistent with his character and his personality. Not in a bad way, but I'm just saying that he hasn't really changed that much, or it's not like he's faking it. But when it comes to Bert Kreischer, it's a little bit different because he's no longer riding that same wave, but he still refuses to do smaller venues or even perform at random clubs. This is probably because that would mean less buses and probably no private jets.
I think a comedian who gets an opportunity to do arenas, you should do it once. And again, it is for you. It's also a way to make a ton of money. You make so much that you can fly in private jets, and it's actually economical suddenly, like cheaper to fly in a jet because you can do more shows. You can do like 5 arenas in 5 nights. But it's insane. There's no friction. It's just life gets crazy.
Yeah.
You should do it once.
I'm doing, this is my arena tour.
But then the next tour you should do theaters, because if you're a fan, you watch the guy every time he comes to town. You know, if you're in Minneapolis, you see him come to the Acme every year, and then you go, he's at the Pantages now. That's cool. And then the State Theater, and then he plays the Timberwolves Stadium.
I'm playing there,
and you go there as a fan. You go, huh. Okay, good for you, Bert. I'm happy for you. But the next year, if he's at the Timberwolves, you don't see him again there. You'll see him at the Pantages every time he comes.
Yeah.
Your favorite comedian. But you're not going to go see him at the arena every year.
Now, you could let me know in the comments below whether you agree or disagree with the argument that bigger venues are not necessarily better for the audience. But there's also an argument that bigger venues and arena tours are not even better or great for the comedian. Obviously, in terms of money and revenue, it's massive. It's great. But I'm talking about in terms of becoming a better comedian, writing better jokes, or even becoming a better podcaster. Now, this is one thing that you do have to give Joe Rogan a lot of credit for, because back then, Joe Rogan was able to keep the podcast going and arguably even improved it while he was doing the UFC and doing his own stand-up comedy, which is absolutely insane. I mean, think about that. If you compare it to Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer, and Andrew Schultz right now, I mean, this is like their first or second year doing arenas, and their podcast, their main project, is completely falling apart. Like, they just can't do both of them at the same time. Andrew Schultz, for the first time in a while, missed an episode of Flagrant 2, and the whole show now heavily relies on having guests on the show. Obviously, YMH Studios, we already covered that whole situation, but it's very clear that they are both just focusing on the wrong things.
You got to be around killers. I mean, you got to be. Bill Burr said this once. He was talking about somebody, and he goes, "You got to do the clubs. You got to do the clubs. These guys, they get to a certain point, they stop doing the clubs, and their act falls apart.
Yeah,
it's 100% true. Like, you got to do it in front of live people." Small crowds, medium crowds. And there's also a thing that happens when comics get established.
Yeah.
And then they get their own audience, and then they bring the weakest possible opening act.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go on afterwards only in front of their audience, and they look like a hero.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's a weird thing because your act sort of deteriorates without you even knowing it.
Right, yeah.
You know?
You ossify. Mm-hmm. You get soft, yeah.
Yeah, some shit goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, when you have a full arena tour scheduled already, it's almost impossible. It's impossible for you to pop into a random club and try out new material in front of a random crowd. And you also don't have time to live your regular life. It's all big venues, private planes, Sprinter vans, fancy dinners, and just staying at the best places in every major city. I mean, at some point, it kind of starts getting to your head, and it almost feels like you can't do anything wrong.
Yeah, but it is difficult to come up with.
How the f*** are you coming up with a new hour?
Well, I got to live. That's why I took some time off. I was constantly on the road, this and that and the other thing. I had no time to even live my life to extract any material. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I said, you know what? Let me take a beat here. Let me concentrate on other things, whether it be a TV show, the podcast. Let me spend some time with my family.
Smart.
And I was talking to Chris Rock about this, and he kind of put it, he goes, there's no way you could make an entrance if you never leave the room.
Yeah.
And
get slapped a bit.
Yeah.
Is that his advice?
Again, I didn't know where he was going with that.
And it really shows, because when you look at comics like Louis C.K. or Shane Gillis, their newest stuff, their newest material, a lot of it is making fun of themselves, and they do it very well. But when you look at comics like Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura, and Andrew Schultz, I don't think I really I don't think I've ever heard them talk bad about themselves or really make fun of themselves. Andrew Schultz recently made fun of his haircut, but I mean, it doesn't really take any major criticism on his own podcast, obviously. I don't think Akash would ever disagree with him on any major topic or any major thing. And it's the same thing with Tom Segura. I mean, the guy had the perfect opportunity to make fun of himself and make a bit about how he essentially turned into a whole different person after he lost weight and made a bunch of money, or the fact that he built a whole YouTube channel on making fun of other people's pain, and then he essentially broke in half while trying to dunk a basketball. I mean, I feel like there's a funny joke somewhere there. But instead, his last special was about how good looking his best friend Brad Pitt is and how he lives around a bunch of famous people.
Look,
shout out,
and I'm
man.
happy to be here, by the way, to get the bear cave a little fatter again.
Yeah,
That's
hey.
one thing I had. Look, as a fan of the show,
Yes.
I've seen Stamos was on it.
Yeah.
Matt Rife. Well, let's get it fat back in here. No
Let's-
disrespect to those guys.
I know.
But
It's a little-
you've even abandoned us, you know?
I'm trying.
You're trying.
I'm trying.
In the light. You know how, like, people try and look at people hot? Like,
Yeah.
you know, when you look at the mirror in yourself, you try and, like, make out the
1,000.
abs.
You try to do, yeah.
I'm the opposite with you, where I'm like, I'm trying to make out a little titty. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm trying to
It's
look
there.
at your
It's all
least
there.
flattering angle
It is, yeah.
to be like, nah, he's still fat. He's still a guy.
It's still,
He's still us.
It's
We
still
still
in
got
there.
him.
It's still there. I'm still on your team, dude.
It's getting dangerous though.
Yeah.
You're getting close. You're a day walker right now. You're Blade. There were great moments in I kind of really liked doing 4 because it kind of takes all the pressure off.
It takes all the pressure
and
off.
it makes it feel real. That's
Yeah.
how, at least at the time, that's how I was performing. Where it's like you go to a city, you do 4 fucking shows,
Yeah.
you get into your rhythm. And I think for specials it's different because now I've been doing a little bit of like the theater 1 show in each city thing, which is cool and it's a different experience. But like nothing beats the just showing up, working it out. You know, each crowd is different. It's a little smaller, so you really get to connect with people. And so, yeah, I loved it. It was really great. And
That's awesome.
So I'm pumped for it, and I just wanted to kind of like do one thing, like do like a mainstream kind of thing, because it's like, you know, the internet's shout out to the internet. I owe my whole life to people finding podcasts, clips, everything from the
Yeah.
internet. But I want just, you know, some random to shit. You know what I mean?
That's the best part
some
of it, yeah.
moms
Yeah.
to see my shit.
And look, Stavros brought up a great point about why doing multiple smaller shows are way better, not only for the audience members, but for the comedian as well. Think about it. If you're somebody like Bert Kreischer who only does 1 show per city, 1 huge arena show, you only have that 1 show. You can't fail. There's no room for failure. You got to be on point, and you can't try out anything new or improvise. You have to be on point. Versus if you're doing smaller theaters, maybe doing 4 shows, you know, you have the first show to warm up, and then by the 4th, you're pretty loose and ready to go. I mean, of course, you're going to perform well at every single show, but then you also have the freedom to maybe improvise, try out some new stuff, and then seeing how it goes. Just being a little bit more relaxed. And it makes a lot of sense in terms of a comedy show. That is what you want. I mean, it just makes sense. So then if most comics and a lot of people agree that doing bigger venues isn't necessarily the best for the audience member and it's just more of an ego thing, then I think we can all agree that the comics that are doing arenas right now, they're not doing it because they're way too big for theaters. Of course not. They're doing it just to be able to show off the accomplishment of doing arenas.
Where you can reserve your ride to the arena on the 30th and 31st, sold out shows in Austin, Texas for this show. How about that? Doing
cool.
arenas, pretty cool, right? And you're here in basically a tiny box with us.
So he gave me a deal. He wanted me in the Garden. So he put, I don't even know if it's legal for me to say all this, but he made a deal with me that the Garden would pay Ticketmaster half their fee and I would pay half. So he paid $6 and I paid $6. So I paid my fans' fee so that they could come to the Garden to see me for $50. To me, this was fun and interesting, and I would have made less money than I would have.
Yeah.
But that's enough.
Yeah.
To me, I have a cap to how much I want to earn.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
What is
then
it?
Past that cap, it gets fun. What fun can I have?
Now, hearing Tony announce that they were doing the next Kill Tony show at an arena was pretty surprising because I do wonder how it's going to play out because obviously the show, it's essentially a hybrid of stand-up comedy, a podcast, and then live band music, which, you know, everybody knows that. But I do wonder how those things will play out in an arena. It's just very interesting. Now, keep in mind that they're not doing a massive arena like the ones that Bert Kreischer does, 18,000 seats or whatever. I think the one they're doing is 8,000 seats, which is still big. It's a lot bigger than a theater, obviously. But it will be interesting to see what the feedback is for that show. Once again, I don't know the reason behind wanting to do an arena, especially for a show like Kill Tony. I think that would be like the perfect argument for a show that needs to be on a smaller venue, but what do I know? Once again, I think it's very interesting how everyone that's doing arenas at the moment is not necessarily putting out the best comedy, the best material, or the best jokes, but instead it's a combination of obviously their social media presence, podcasting, and the fact that everybody was stuck inside back in 2020, and now they're able to tour the world. However, now it seems like those arena tours are starting to backfire because they're essentially distracting them and pulling them away, and they're not paying attention to the projects that got them to where they are now.
Just because, it's a lot of pressure to come up with material.
That's the thing. Like, you have a podcast, but it's not like a source of your life's income. Like, you can't just, your podcast is broke. What I'm trying to say.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Fortunately, you make the most money ever doing comedy, so you can afford these amazing things that you do. But for us, we can make a living on the pod, and then it puts less pressure on, okay, I got to get a new hour ready to go by this time. But also the cool thing is that you get to work from home, you're around your family, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things where you don't have that pressure to, I need a new hour by February. Mm-hmm. So let's go, because this tour starts here and I gotta go.
Yeah.
You could do that whenever the hell you want to.
Yeah.
And something I find very interesting and funny is how Andrew Schulz was essentially telling Sebastian, explaining the differences between himself, a podcast comedian, and somebody like Sebastian, a real comic. I mean, Andrew Schulz was basically explaining that because he has a money printing machine, also known as the podcast, he doesn't really have to stress about writing a new hour or coming up with new material because he has the source of income. Whereas somebody like Sebastian, or again, somebody like Kevin Hart, Fluffy, and Louis C.K. back in the day, they heavily relied on their comedy special in order to get more opportunities. Nowadays, you could argue that comics like Schulz, Tom Segura, and Bert Kreischer don't really need the comedy specials anymore. And because of that, they don't really need to stress about it that much. Because obviously they already have a built-in audience, and they have the amazing and massive Rogan marketing machine, the podcast where they can always promote those specials on. For example, Shane Gillis recently got a comedy special on Netflix, which was pretty good. It was funny, but it wasn't as funny as the comedy special that he put out on YouTube. That was insane. I mean, you could tell that he was actually putting all his best effort into that comedy special. And the one on Netflix, it didn't really make that much of a difference. Obviously, I'm sure he got paid very well, and it's a lot of exposure to different people, and then bragging rights saying that you have a comedy special. But again, it didn't really change that much. He was already massive. And in my opinion, I don't think he went all out on that comedy special. But yeah, at the end of the day, I do think that this new trend of wanting to do arenas will eventually expose the social media comics versus the real comics. And look, I'm not saying that Andrew Schulz or Tom and Burr are social media comics, not at all. I mean, at this point, they have already established themselves as real comedians, but I use them as examples of someone that is slowly grifting into that. Obviously, this will apply to other social media comics that I'm sure you've seen coming up recently. A lot of them are great. A lot of them obviously don't deserve to be up there, in my opinion, where the material is not really the best, but they're selling tickets. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. It helps out so much, and I really appreciate that. Dislike if you didn't like the video, but that is all we have for today. See ya.